Hey, Batman Ultra 7 here. I've been watching a lot of Batman Beyond, as you should notice. I have been on an insane animation kick recently, and that's very much the core of what I'm about to talk about in this video. And it really hits at the heart of what is going on in Hollywood right now. The lack of respect for artists, both in animation, live action, both in animated films, animated television, as well as live action films and live action television. Art is in trouble, and we really need to talk about that on here. So, as I move forward with my life, which is a lot of changes, that's why I'm calling this new era for Batman Ultra 7, Batman Ultra 7 Rebirth. Hey, Batman Ultra 7 here. Welcome to the new year of Batman Ultra 7. Batman Ultra 7 Rebirth, as I call it. I love animation. I've been in love with this art form my entire life, and I will be till the day I die. From the Disney movies of the 90s, like Emperor's New Groove, Mulan, and Aladdin, to the emotionally mature Pixar films like Up, Soul, and WALL-E, to especially television like the golden age of Cartoon Network, with Foster's Home for Imaginary Friends, and Kid Next Door, and so much more. I love animation. Animation has taken on very hard times since I was little, watching the Iron Giant on my box TV. Not to say animation has ever been treated fairly or with the respect and love it deserves, because it hasn't. But the way the industry treats animation and the wonderful artists that bring it to life has drastically gotten worse and worse. Certain names and projects come to mind when talking about the tragic abuse that this art form has taken in the past decade. David Zaslav, who has actively destroyed the entire animation catalog of Warner Brothers, while also giving us the insulting Frankenstein that is Velma, which has amazing animation and clearly has a lot of work and passion from the animators, while its writing actively puts down and insults the medium it's being created within and the fans of it themselves. And no, I'm not here to beat the dead horse of the Velma show. Plenty of good people on here have talked about it, like NerdSync and Troy O'Boyle, but I'm not here to talk about something I hate, but something I love. I've had a strong connection to the DreamWorks animated movies since I was very little, specifically with the Shrek franchise and the ensuing expansion of that universe into Puss in Boots, as well as specials and some stuff on TV. Of course, my love for the studio's animation would expand beyond all of this to include Kung Fu Panda, Monsters vs. Aliens, Megamind, How to Train Your Dragon, and so much more. But recently, as DreamWorks made their artistic comeback, and the DreamWorks Renaissance, so to speak, amongst all this industry dissonance towards this art form, this comeback has manifested in the form of two recent films, The Bad Guys and what I'm talking about today. But don't worry, guys, The Bad Guys will get its due from me, but today I want to talk about
Who is your favorite fearless hero? Who is your favorite fearless hero?
I only saw this movie very recently, but I've been in anticipation of seeing the Puss in Boots in this new installment ever since the first trailer released. But I had no idea that this movie was going to be what it is. Animation is life-changing. Animation is joy-filling. Animation is magic. What most people fail to see is that animation is not a genre, nor is it purely for kids. This movie shows that animation is for everybody. Adults, kids, and everybody in between. The industry may not respect that fact, but I will not rest until this medium gets the respect and love it truly deserves. Especially this movie. From the very first second of watching Puss in Boots, I can really feel the passion behind every frame. The artistry of the composition of each shot. Every second of this movie is entirely intentional and purposeful, while also maintaining a good energy of speed and fun that is usual to the world of Puss in Boots. First things first, before we get into the story of this beautiful film, let's talk about the animated elephant in the room. 24 FPS animation and why it's important and beautiful. Look, I'm not going to pretend that I am an expert on the subject. I'm no animator or artist in this art form, but I am an avid consumer and lover of animation, so let's talk about why this is important. In film animation, there are 24 frames in each second, 24 X's or 24 FPS. Full animation requires 12 to 24 drawings per second to achieve believable action or movement. If each drawing is photographed once, as in 24 drawings in a second, it is called ones. Like many people on the internet, you may be asking yourself, why shouldn't a piece of animation go quote-unquote faster, as in the format of 60 FPS? Well, like all things in the matters of art, there are multiple layers to why 24 FPS works so well and works so beautifully. First, it's down to texture. Through 24 frames per second, we're able to absorb this insane mosaic of texture and painted characters and world by really feeling it in this more stop motion style framing. Second, it lends itself to this more layered art style, as you can see in not only The Last Wish, but also films such as Akira, Into the Spider-Verse, Intergalactic, and The Mitchells vs. the Machines, where you get to really be sucked into these worlds through beautiful painted backgrounds in this incredible marriage of 2D and 3D animation. The detail of 2D with the depth of 3D, creating an entirely unique world.
It's interesting because a lot of people point to Spider-Verse, which was very groundbreaking. I remember growing up watching Akira, and there's so much that we as artists want to do, and we're just super excited that DreamWorks is basically going, tell the story visually. How you feel it specifically gets the point across. Akira just made a big impression on me as a kid, with the effects and things being able to not be super real. I think of anime explosions that feel bigger than real life because you can see these drawings are perfectly graphically designed drawings on screen longer than if it was a simulated CG explosion where it goes smoothly. So that was our concept. We didn't want to just switch up the animation style because it's cool, but more have a story reason behind it. For me, it goes back to that initial nugget of the idea that this story is fantastical. It's this fairy tale about a cat on his 9th life. Then it's grounded in reality when you realize that it's about one life, and so everything points back to that. When Puss is fighting the giant at the beginning of the movie, we want it to feel like this fun ride that you're on. You don't even feel like he's going to die. He's fighting a giant. He's a tiny cat, but the camera is smoothly tracking behind him like a superhero. The animation style is what we call stepped, where it's not traditional CG smooth, everything on ones. You're holding certain frames for like 3 frames, 4 frames, so you can see these push drawings. And all of a sudden you get that superhero kind of feel to it, and it feels fantastical. We wanted to really bring the audience in for this exciting opening that also puts you in Puss's worldview. He's like, I'm immortal, I'm gonna live forever. And then use that to switch up the style in moments of, say, vulnerability, where one is actually aware of the fragility of life. You can go to these more grounded executions of animation, which are traditional CG, where everything is smooth and on ones. As an audience, you feel like, oh, that's more grounded in my reality. We really just wanted to make sure we juxtapose the absurdity and the reality next to each other so you can jump into different kinds of points of view.
So to all of you guys on TikTok, Insta, and especially YouTube that are messing with the frame rate of the animated masterworks, stop that immediately. It's so disrespectful to the art itself and the people that make it. In the case of Puss in Boots, you have this storybook painted look that graces every frame and sets this movie apart from all of DreamWorks, and above all of animation. You see every edge and curvature of these characters while also seeing every brush at work in the detailing of this world, and it's beautiful. In a world of constant homogeneity within the world, and especially animation, which the very art form has been fighting against for decades upon decades, with the delegitimization of it being perpetuated by companies like Disney, Netflix, and Warner Brothers, Puss in Boots' Last Wish decides to be something different, and say something different, something unique, something about the real world, because animation is art. Art that has something to say about the human experience. There's so much subtle beauty and high-octane awesomeness to the style and animation of Puss in Boots: The Last Wish. First thing I want to focus on in regards to the directing and incredible style to this film is the fight against the giant. Let's break down this incredible scene real quick. There is so much kinetic energy to this scene. You practically get the entire soundtrack of this scene from the mariachi band as they send him towards this giant attacking the town. Puss moves fearlessly across rooftops as the bell is swung towards them. This whole scene quite reminiscent of the action scenes of Spider-Verse. This whole fight scene is a steady movement, only a few feet behind Puss as he moves towards the giant. Puss effortlessly dodges every single shot the giant tries to make with his bell, and Puss simply laughs in the face of danger, in the face of death. And on the art side of things, you get to see every layer of moss or stone on every inch of this stone monstrosity, as well as the 2D animated oval that appears when, wham, the bell hits the giant and knocks him down, giving it an almost comic booky feel with a storybook flourish.
Working on these movies, you have the best of the best in their own departments. The visual experience of this. Production designer Nate Ragg designed this painterly style. The head of character animation, Ludovic Bonchu, found this nice balance between pushed hand-drawn, stepped animation, and traditional CG, which is smoother. And Chris Stover was head of layout, all the camera work. And it all comes together to bring you into this contrasting experience, where at moments everything looks like a painting. Take Puss in Boots when he's fighting the giant at the beginning. You're dropped into this fairy tale painting. Everything is fun. You're enjoying Puss fighting a giant. You don't feel like he's in any danger. We're using this stepped animation. You're getting to see pushed poses as he jumps through the air. Everything feels fantastical. Even the cameras, these long sweeping shots that tell you it's safe and you're following this superhero. Being able to have these concepts that come together that make you feel like this. Puss's worldview at the beginning is, I'm immortal, I'm gonna live forever, as he's oblivious to how many lives he's lost. Then to contrast, you have scenes where he's confronted by this wolf bounty hunter in the bar, and all of a sudden, the filmmaking style switches up. We go to these darker images, still painterly, but there's striking imagery and flashes of red that take over the background at certain points. We go to quick cuts, contrasting the long ones in the opening that made it startling and shocking to the audience. You're almost trying to keep up with the visuals. Much like Puss, He's on his back foot for the first time as the wolf is knocking him back. And then you have these moments where the camera work and the animation coincide, where you go between stepped animation, Puss trying to be the hero, and this smooth animation. This is gritty and real as the wolf cuts him. Because we really pushed the style and expanded our tools in this, it allowed us to not just tell the story literally, but push it impressionistically. When Puss is cut by the wolf in that bar fight, we wanted the audience to feel that fear that sets in for the first time for Puss. He's just been singing about how he's fearless in the opening and taking out the giant. So it was important to go, how can we make the audience feel the stakes along with Puss? When the wolf cuts Puss, the whole background flashes to red. It's super stylized, it's impressionistic, and then the very next shot is a close-up, like a spaghetti western close-up, of our hero, and the only red in the shot is a little drop of blood, which isn't a lot. It makes the audience feel the shock that Puss is feeling in that moment. And then when his hair raises, our goal was for the audience's hair to raise and for you to be brought up on this experience with Puss.
Voice acting is an incredibly undersold art in this day and age, where the disrespect for this profession is honestly mind-boggling. From the animated series that have graced the small screen and have constantly risked cancellation at the mercy of such titans as Warner Brothers or Disney, to the animated films that are under-advertised and just completely underseen unless they're attached to the Disney name. The cast of this film is honestly just incredible. There's a lot of movies today where I could say one or two or even more actors in the cast weren't at their best, or their character wasn't necessary, but you can't say this about this film. And it's cast because everybody plays an important role in the story and everybody shows up. More than most current popular animated films, Puss really is the main character of the story. Antonio Banderas really displayed his incredible talent as an actor in this movie, and I love him so much for it. I've always been a big fan of Antonio Banderas, but what drew me to his acting career first was his role as Zorro in the 90s, and that completely translated to my love for him as Puss in Boots in a similar but even better role. This love being multiplied tenfold in The Last Wish, where Banderas really changes the game with what it means to be a protagonist in a DreamWorks film, and even in an American animated feature. And really what's made me so attached to the character of Puss in Boots, besides the slick Spanish accent of Banderas and the sick sword and sombrero, is the passion behind the voice of the fearless hero himself, Antonio Banderas.
Without being explicit, there certainly is a halo of current world situations with the whole COVID topic, for example, and things that happened in my personal life, like my heart attack, that sort of snuck into the character in a way. I don't know whether it was intentional or just by chance, so then I was surprised when I read the script and saw the story growing in the direction it went. What happens when you do voice acting is that you do sessions with 2, 3, 4 scenes tops, which you record and send in. Then you stop for a while, and a few weeks later or a month later, you get another 2 sessions with a new section of the script. We work in pieces, and then you revisit some of the scenes as they change and so on. This film grew a lot in the whole existentialism aspect of the character, in that we see him as a hero who is depressed, defeated, and thinking that life is pointless. We see Puss doing things we've never seen him do before, and then in a state of panic where he is vulnerable, he's hyperventilating because he's literally being chased by death. I think it is brilliantly done because the audience we talk to, the kids who have been stuck at home for 2 years during the pandemic, going to schools with masks, vaccinating, thinking that outside their homes is an aggressive world threatening them and so on. So rather than turn our backs to that, the movie is confronting that situation directly with the audience, the whole theme of death. The movie, I think, puts value in life, places life as the biggest worth in existence.
Previously, in the Shrek franchise, where Antonio Banderas obviously premiered the role of Puss in Boots, Puss was much more of a side character or a background character, which he had time to shine, but he wasn't the starring role. He wasn't the hero of the story. Shrek was, or Donkey was. But in the second film, Antonio Banderas was really learning the difference between being that side character and being that background character to being the titular hero and the main character, which he talks about in this quote.
So it came to me in a much more natural way. I had time to see the dangers that surround celebrities and being famous and all the parallel lives that exist around actors. Me, I said to myself very early in my career, what am I here for? I'm here for what happens between action and cut. I'm here for what happens from the moment the curtain goes up and the curtain goes down. That's my life. Everything else that is happening around you, of course you have to play with it in the best possible way, but the important thing is the other stuff. So I grew into being a star very little by little. I don't know, I'm probably humble because I have a certain level of insecurity, you know? If I had 9 lives, I probably wouldn't be that humble, but I have 1. So, I have to be careful with what I say, with what I do, because I've seen a lot of idiots during my time doing a lot of things that weren't right. And so I don't want to be one of those. I want to be more centered in believing that my life starts every day. And success is something that comes and goes. So you have to be very alert and very persistent every day you're building whatever you are, every day. When I was doing it, it didn't affect me that much actually because I was compartmentalizing the movie. I was concentrating on this scene and what's happening there and then the next one and blah blah blah. So when I saw the movie for the first time, they sent it to a theater in Malaga for me. So I saw it on a big screen and then it got to me. I said, oh my god. There are a number of scenes in the movie that actually caught me off guard as if I actually didn't really do it. But it really surprised me the way it was edited and the music that was in there and how there were very specific pauses and rhythm that gave the movie something very electric and very beautiful and very emotional. Completely. After my heart attack, it was like an epiphany, a revelation that I was not actually doing the things that I wanted to do. I was living more the life of others and the projections they had over me, what they wanted me to be, and I was just playing the game. And at that particular moment, I said, no, this is not right. I have to live my life. And I bought a theater. So I went off to do exactly what I wanted to do. And in the last 5 years of my life, that's what I've been doing, and I'm very happy.
Harvey Guillen, who plays Perito, the comic relief and honestly heart of the movie, where he manages to balance making you laugh and making you feel for him as a character. Guillen plays possibly the most likable and loved dog character since the days of a pup named Scooby-Doo. Fresh off of What We Do in the Shadows, Harvey approaches this role with an incredible passion of glee and fun that only he could bring to the character. Though his breakout role was indeed What We Do in the Shadows, this young Latino actor has been grinding for years on the small screen, from The Thundermans in a recurring role, to The Good Place, to even modern animated classics like Harley Quinn, The Owl House, and Big City Greens. The benefit of Guillen being more of a TV bit actor is that he has such a joy-filled, childlike approach to acting, and specifically in Puss in Boots' Last Wish, because of his connection to this world through his childhood.
To be with Antonio and Selma, we never got to record together, but I just feel like I was going to come along and be their third wheel in an already well-oiled bicycle. But we meshed so well together. I know these characters, I grew up with these characters, and now with Perito, it was like a missing little thing that you never knew you were missing until you had it, and now you have it. It's nice to see that this is my first animated feature film. I've always wanted to be an animated character, I wanted to be a cartoon, but it was just so hard to get into voiceover work. It wasn't until just recently, the last couple of years, that I started getting the opportunity to audition for roles. And when the opportunity for this came up, I jumped at it, and I was more excited to be asked to audition than anything. But I didn't get my hopes up, and then I got a call a couple days later, and they're like, you're the new character, and you're joining Selma and Antonio on their journey in this new movie. And I was like, what? It was a little overwhelming and wonderful, and I'm just so glad to be a part of it.
Now let's talk about the female powerhouse of the film, Salma Hayek. An endlessly powerful and incredible actress, both on the soundstage and on live-action set throughout her career. I've loved her work from the very beginning, from Dogma to many great films by Robert Rodriguez, her role as Kitty Softpaws, and these films highlighting Salma as an utter and complete icon of Mexican culture. And that representation is priceless. And being one of the best actresses in the industry ever, in my opinion. She shines in every role she stars in ceaselessly. She's incredibly versatile and a complete class act.
When we were working together, we really spent the time to explore the characters and their real issues and look into the relationship with the other characters. It was never just saying lines, we really did the work together. Almost more than in a regular film, because sometimes in a regular film, people are not rehearsing anymore. Everything is hurry, hurry, hurry. And he had a wonderful process of exploring the characters and the story, and the different meanings that we could bring. What was her contribution to the audience through the characters today? And I knew it was something special because also, I love this. I believe in intention. I believe that it's important to always be aware of your intentions. And it felt like I was doing a movie, collaborating with people that had an intention that was beyond, let's do a hit movie, let's say something and say something also visually. How do we translate what we're trying to say with the plot, with the narrative, with the characters also visually? And for me, that was mind-blowing. So I knew it quite early on in our character development together.
The opening to this movie really displays so clearly what this movie wants to be in such a unique and magical way. The first line really showing the core of the story, looking at the cosmic plane of the universe and wishing for more than you already have, wishing upon a star, because this is a fairy tale with a heart. The star falling on Earth within itself is such an incredibly beautiful shot, flooding this dark world with a multitude of colors, a small hint at artistry this movie will offer. It was simply genius to start this movie with narration by the simply amazing Antonio Banderas, because as always, his coarse but charismatic Spanish voice is just utterly mesmerizing. Even the first shot beyond this is so emblematic of what this movie is about. It shows Puss in Boots standing behind a red curtain on a stage as people are cheering for him, waiting for him to display himself. He basks in the glory of this moment because Puss is in love with his glory. You can even notice that Puss in Boots doesn't dare to look at the people through this entire first scene till he's asked to sing a song and bask in his self-evident, vainglorious pride as the man who laughs at death, the fearless hero. This very song is such a perfect portrait of the very character of Puss in Boots. In every lyric in this song, sung by Puss, is quite literally a rhetorical question for more and more praise. Puss lives in a never-ending want for glory, want for recognition, want for his ego to grow, because he's running away from something that we all run from: death. Even in this beginning scene with the fight against the giant, death is lurking. Puss doesn't see it because he's blinded by the glory of being a hero, the serotonin overload of adventure and wide acclaim. But in this, he's careless. He dispatches his life like one might carelessly throw away a half-eaten taco. At the end of this first scene, Puss dies. The end. Roll credits. Or that would be the end if it wasn't this movie. Puss has 9 lives, or he did before. In talking to the doctor, who's not really a doctor, though through some comedic dialogue eventually leading to a morbidly funny montage of every time Puss has died, he realizes something. He's on his last life. How does he react to this information? He puts on his boots, his cape, his signature hat, shrugging it off completely. If I were your 9th grade English teacher, I'd be pointing out to you that this is an important step of the hero's journey. The rejection of the call, but it's deeper than that. The way Puss reacts to this, to the impermanence of his life, is casual, nonsensical, it's careless, and it's meant to be. Selma Hayek described it best in one of her interviews for the movie.
All he wants to do is good things for others, and it's one of his weapons. You know, this delusional, unapologetic narcissism. And in this movie, you see the fragile part, and you love him all the more because of it. He's a nice, good cat. He wants to do good for the world, and one of his weapons is his very robust self-esteem.
Then we move on to a scene in a bar, a very familiar setting to a story like this. Our hero in victory of his latest triumph kicks back this universe's equivalent of a cold one. A glass of milk, or as Puss would say, leche. He's blowing off steam, in denial of the theme, but there's a man next to him sitting at the bar, a wolf. From the very first word, his theme plays. Eerie, but very much in line with the world. Fascinated with the mythic Puss in Boots, the hero who laughs at death. We don't know who this wolf is, but we get a feeling he means business, making vague comments, Puss thinking he's a bounty hunter, so they come to blows, and even back and forth till a fateful moment, where the last wish really becomes the movie it is. It goes from a beautifully artistic kids movie to a beautifully artistic animated movie that is for everyone, and it's saying something in this. After much parrying between the two, the bounty hunter slashes upward with his weapon in a slow downfall from Puss. The whole scene is red, a stark contrast. The movie telling you things are different. This isn't a kids movie. This is for everyone. This is to everyone. The bounty hunter cut Puss's forehead open. Not a deep wound, but it's shocking. That shot of blood pouring out of this hero's forehead, this cat, this Puss in Boots. Suddenly, he isn't just a legend anymore. He's us. The fear in his eyes. Death before him. His lives flash before his eyes, and for the first time in his life, Puss is afraid of death. His hairs raise in a stress response that I'm sure most of us who have experienced panic attacks understand. And when the wolf asks Puss that fateful question,
Pick it up. Pick it up.
that is the question of this film. Puss is afraid, and that fear holds him back from doing something. What is it? Puss faced death itself at the hands of this bounty hunter. His lives flashed before his eyes, and the picture he saw wasn't full. So he runs. He runs away, as he always does, but this time, it's quite literal. And let me be honest here in saying that I do not intend going through the plot beat by beat, like a movie review. I'm not Cinemassacre. I want to get to the heart of what Joel Crawford, Antonio Banderas, Salma Hayek, and the rest of the wonderful people that made this movie are saying. After Puss encounters death and his own mortality, he lays Puss in Boots to rest, putting himself out to pasture, in a sense, at this home for stray cats run by an old lady. And in putting his persona to rest, he gives a valiant speech on his own behalf, as is his vanity. But beyond that, his depression overtakes him. He grows a beard, the hero is gone. Puss is unrecognizable beneath his evasion of his trauma, in his descent in depression. And how does he escape? The innocence and kindness of a little dog disguised as a cat, Burrito. More on this wonderful dog later. In this movie, we're introduced to the second rendition of Goldilocks and the Three Bears, even if this movie wants to forget that. As a British mob family of sorts, this family of sorts wants something. The last wish. Yes, it's the title of the movie, we get it. As established in the beginning of the movie, there's this star that crashed on the planet a long time ago, granting wishes to those who ask, and there's one last wish in it. So obviously on this quest for said wish, the family want an expert to help them get their prize. That expert being Puss in Boots. And to get this last wish, they need a map in the possession of one big Jack Horner, and Puss in Boots is the one hero who can do that. When Puss overhears the quest that the family is going on, he can't resist, for with this last wish, he can get back his 9 lives and not be afraid anymore. Puss digs up his persona and becomes Puss in Boots once again.
Oh, okay.
Oh, yeah. Normally, I have a sword. It's like a whole thing.
Going on his way to steal the map from Jack Horner. and Perito tags along with him, much to his chagrin. Now on Jack Horner, despite the character being devilishly evil, cartoonishly so, his character is really important on a thematic level. He used to perform at his parents' bakery shop, reciting the lines from his nursery rhyme, dancing and performing the signature move, pulling a plum out of a pie. He was overshadowed by Pinocchio's wooden puppet performance. This festered in him an inferiority complex, and his heart filled with rage and resentment stemming from the envy he felt. How does this figure into the story? Jack is egotistical. He's a performer, and all he desires is praise upon praise. He's an analog for Puss. Jack is who Puss could become if he continues on the path he's on. Some has-been hero resenting everybody else because his ego is propped up. Jack Horner never took stock of his life and never made lasting relationships with people because he was so stuck on the fact that he got cheated out of fame by Pinocchio. And there will be something to be learned for everyone. All the players of the story clash in this one scene. We get a peek at what kind of character Jack Horner is: self-obsessed, self-absorbed, and very narcissistic. Puss is sneaking in, trying to snatch the map to the star while several people stumble upon him. Kitty Softpaws, the ex-fiancée of Puss, resentful of him. Goldie and the Bears, the found family of crime. And Jack Horner, the unloved narcissist who wants more. A chase ensues. Kitty Softpaws and Puss begrudgingly join forces, getting out with the map, the naive Perito included. During this mayhem, the wolf appears again, the whistle echoing in Puss's ears. Seeing him in the crowd, small detail here with the wolf is that I'll bring up later, but notice the coins in the wolf's eyes. An artistic choice for sure, but it informs the character and the story as we go along. Some wonderful hijinks and a great character dynamics later. Puss and company arrive at the Dark Forest pocket dimension where the star dwells. Important detail here that we learn that really informs what the movie is about. This pocket dimension, this dark forest, forms and contorts according to the heart of who touches the map. Pure intentions create a safe path. Greed creates a thorny one. Anytime Puss, Kitty, or pretty much any character holds the map, the forest turns into 10 kinds of terribleness. But when Perito touches the map, the forest transforms in an altogether different way. It shapes into a land of sunshine and rainbows. Pocket full of posies, the river of relaxation, and the field of quick and easy solutions. Because it all comes from the intentions of the one who holds the map, and Peritos are pure. Perito didn't go with Puss and Kitty because he had a wish of his own. He went because he cared about them. Perito's selfless and good, but that doesn't mean he had an easy life. The two cats let Perito hold onto the map, not with the intention of relinquishing either of their wishes, but just so the path is easier. Then the group goes up to the pocket full of posies. Puss and Kitty resolving to cut through their path, destroying the flowers to get what they want, but all that is met with is the flowers wanting to kill them, reflecting the content of their hearts. Then Perito, being who he is, stops and smells the posies, showing that the reward isn't the wish they so desperately want. And it's what Perito so obviously understands. As they move on past the posies, the cat's taking after Perito's example. They ask him about his past. Perito claims it was a funny story that involved him growing up with a family of pranksters when he was a puppy. They would always play hide and seek, and the pup was always it, being thrown into places such as a dumpster. He would always end up finding them, until one day the pranksters decided to shove him into a sock with a rock and throw him in a river. Perito gnawed a hole in the sock and swam to the surface, but never found his way back home. Despite the traumatic events, Perito was able to move on from the incident and turned the sock into a comfy sweater. Kitty enforces the idea that Perito should get the wish, but he objects, saying he's happy with his sweater and 2 best friends. Perito takes the very object of his trauma, a perfect example that the people who were supposed to take care of him didn't want him. He takes that and makes it a gift. That is Perito's character. Having all these bad things happening to you and taking it in stride, never letting it get you down, and always being optimistic. Puss and Kitty are so caught up in what was, what could be, that they never consider what they have now. As the 3 are sailing through the river for relaxation, Kitty and Perito talk about trust. Kitty convinced that Perito is just an innocent little puppy that he shouldn't trust either of them given their history. After this, because of Puss's constant whining about it, Kitty shaves Puss's beard, and the good as new Puss in Boots, in need of his signature weapon, Kitty gives him the Cachito blade, giving him her trust. There's a moment where all of them are really bonding, but then suddenly, Big Jack Horner shows up and kidnaps Perito, threatening to shoot him with a unicorn horn if he isn't given the map. While the 3 bears throw a couple of the baker's dozen at Horner, the dog makes a quick run to escape the crossfire. Once Goldilocks grabs a hold of the map, the land shapeshifts into the nostalgic pines, leading to all the characters separating from each other. It's utter mayhem, and amongst it all, Puss freezes, the wolf standing in the foreground waiting for him, whistling the whistle of death. All of Puss's hairs stand up again, panicking. None of the mayhem matters anymore. Puss only sees the wolf. He only feels the wolf. He runs and runs and runs. He runs through the forest, seeing the wolf everywhere now, in everything now. Breathing heavily, his heart beating a mile a minute. He lays down at a tree. His breathing increasing, his heartbeat leaping. Puss in Boots is having a panic attack. No music, no jokes, no heroism, just Puss having a panic attack. Perito follows Puss, quickly realizing what's happening and knows what he has to do. Perito lays his head on Puss's stomach, calming him. Puss puts his hand on Perito's head, now realizing the truth of what Perito said when they first met. Puss is scared, but Perito's there when he needs him. They talk about what scares Puss so, talking about Santa Coloma and why he left Kitty at the altar. Perito urges Puss to tell Kitty the truth of what happened, but then Kitty catches up with them and we continue this journey. The 3 heroes now following after Goldilocks and the 3 bears. The cats and the crime family clash. In the scuffle, the family kidnap Perito, putting him in a trap that will be set if he doesn't tell them where the map is. Puss tells Kitty to go after Perito, while he tries to find his way out of the cave of lost souls. The family bickers. This makes Perito laugh, distracting them. Hearing all of the insults the family is dishing out to each other, or quote-unquote jokes in his mind, he begins spitting out some of his own from his own family, most of them bleeped out. This amuses Papa Bear. Then Perito talks about how lucky Goldilocks is to have such a family, and that he wishes he had a family like this. This makes Goldie reconsider her wish. Kitty then saves Perito from the trap, the family falling into their own trap. Back to Puss. He walks further into the cave, discovering his past 8 lives in these mirrors. These reflections of who he is and who he is still. He's nostalgic for a moment, but the more he hears these other lives he's lived, these other Puss in Boots, the more he doesn't want to do with him. And the more he realizes how foolish he's been to want to go this alone, and how big his ego is. He starts walking away to leave these remnants of his past, but before he can, he's confronted by the wolf. And the wolf reveals who he is. And now we come back to the detail I mentioned earlier. The dimes on his eyes What does it mean? It's the Sharon's Obol. Sharon's Obol is an elusive term for the coin placed in or on the mouth of a dead person before burial. Greek and Latin literary sources specify the coin as an obol and explain it as a payment or bribe for Charon, the ferryman who conveyed souls across the river that divided the world of the living from the world of the dead. And from this information we glean the conclusion that the wolf is truly death.
And I don't mean it metaphorically or rhetorically or poetically or theoretically or in any other fancy way. I'm death, straight up. And I've come for you, Puss in Boots.
Then all of the story comes to a head where the story first began, the star. All of their wants and desires collide in this chase to save themselves and not each other. Everyone in their own way, claimed for selfish gain. Puss has the map, the tool with which he can have what he wants. 9 more lives. He looks at the found family, the people that love him, that he cast aside in fear of losing what's most dear to him, his mortality. In the face of death, we risk losing what we live for. Then Puss's desperate chase of his goal and his inability to choose. He's trapped again, facing death before him, surrounded by flame. The wolf reiterates his challenge in 3 words: pick it up. But this time, Puss doesn't cower in fear or run away scared. He looks to his friends and remembers what they mean to him, the love they carry. And in the face of death, he takes hold of it and fights back. He fights with the love he's been given, not carelessly, but passionately. The conclusion speaks for itself.
I know I can never defeat you, Lobo, but I will never stop fighting for this life.
Fui a jugar con mi comida. You're ruining this for me. I came here for an arrogant little legend who thought he was immortal. But I don't see him anymore. Live your life, Puss in Boots. Live it well. You know we will meet again, right?
Sí, hasta la muerte.
What I love about him is that he's not a victim of his environment, of his backstory, of his upbringing. He has a really tragic story, but he somehow managed to make it into a fun story he shares with a friend. Like, you know what? I have a joke for you. One time my family put me in a sack, and they put rocks in that sack, and then dropped it into... And people are like, that's not a funny story. Isn't that hilarious? I didn't win the hide-and-seek game. In his mind, it's just ignorance is bliss or a blessing. He's someone who can overcome things like that. And you don't have to make yourself a victim of your circumstances.
When I went to see Puss in Boots: The Last Wish with my friends, I did not expect it to hit as hard as it did. I love the Shrek films and animation in general, but I just didn't expect much from this movie, and boy, was I wrong. When I walked into that theater and sat down, I was in awe of it from the first frame to the last. And I was touched by the story about the fierce feline who laughs at death and the family he finds along the way. I watched Puss in Boots: The Last Wish at the end of January, and if I'm being honest, whether I knew it or not, I needed this movie. I'm trying to be more honest on here, and me being honest, it's been a rough couple years. I am struggling. I can't speak for everyone, but I can speak to my own experiences. In the past 4 to 5 years of my life, my mental health has gotten drastically worse, and has been evidently exacerbated by the state of the world and the state of my relationships in comparison to my childhood. Things change. In 2020, a lot changed for a lot of people. We couldn't go outside and interact with everybody we want to, but more importantly, it revealed a lot that was already there in the world and in us. The world, and even America, if we are more specific to where I am, is hurting bad. Anxiety, depression, poverty, hate crimes, constant strife across the board because of anything under the sun, and it all piles up inevitably. The trauma that many people carry every single day is real, and we need to stop ignoring it. Why Puss in Boots: The Last Wish? Because Joel Crawford takes a beloved character, a kids' movie hero, a comedic side character from Shrek, and he puts him in our shoes. Puss faces what we face, endures what I've endured, suffers what I suffer, and it's comforting. Puss confronts death, literally and figuratively. He was cocky, he was self-absorbed, he was narcissistic. Puss once had everything one could have ever wanted: love, friends, a life of duty to protect those he loves, but he threw it all away. And for what? To bolster his ego. He took so much things in his life for granted, like any of us can. To receive his social reward of great acclaim and the gift of fame, but deep down inside, the very thing he laughs in the face of, he hasn't faced himself. In 2020, I had my first panic attack. I was alone. I was thinking about everything in my life. The friends that had gone away and passed me by. What I once had and what was lost. I thought about my family. My brothers. The hard worker. The thinker. The academic. I thought, how do I fit into this picture? And the same answer kept on hitting me. I didn't fit. My puzzle piece was weird, oblong, and misshapen. It was made of poor handiwork. I gave so much, but I felt so little. I was tired, exhausted. I didn't feel like there was a purpose to go on. I had nothing, and I was nothing. That was my reality. Once the tears began, I couldn't force them back to where they came. The tears came pouring out of the waterfall of my regret, my self-hate, my emotional blindness, my anxious thoughts, my isolation, my loneliness. It was a deafening cacophony. My ears pounded, pounded, pounded. Warmer, red hot. In the darkened room where I'd spent so much time disassociating from my own life, came all of the remnants of it, forming a chain around my throat, a scythe with which to kill me, a death without caring. It pounds and pounds and pounds and pounds. I can't hear anything anymore. Not the other people in my house, not knowing what is happening to me, not the world around me, the billions of souls suffering, not even the words of characters on the screen I'd watched a billion movies on. No, only my thoughts and the pounding. Like a crazed madman trying to break down a door. It pounds through my skull, pounds through my ears, pounds through everything. The floor, the sky, my heart, my eyes. The pounding was inevitable, inescapable. The pounding. The light at the end of the tunnel, that's what they always say. But no, it wasn't as simple as that. It was a friend's icon on my phone. Marissa. A message. She asked me how I'm doing. And to answer, I escape the noise from my anxiety and tell her, Marissa. She walks me through it. Marissa. She gives me a video to calm myself down, a peaceful meditation, a peace. Gives me advice. She cares. She's compassionate. She takes time out of her day and talks me off the bridge of my own depression. I know it's kind of the Disney answer, but love saw me through that dark time. Not love in the romantic sense, but the love of a friend, the care of a friend, and willingness to put out an open hand and pull you up out of the darkness. And that's what I found in Puss in Boots: The Last Wish. That when you look, really look, at the friends, the found family around you, and you hold on tight, pick it up, well, there's something really special.